to really deal with the nuts and bolts. Parliamentary procedure to me is fun, but it's not fun for everybody. But it doesn't mean that you can't get a really basic knowledge, enough to do the business that you need to do without having to study the great big book of Robert's Rules of Order. So I'm really going to go into really quickly, why in the world do I have to know this stuff? All right, so I'm going to tell you. Parliamentary procedure is a very useful tool to get business conducted in meetings. And it's not just political meetings, it's board meetings of organizations, everything like that. It's sort of a shortcut to make sure that everything happens and you can make all the decisions you need to make, but at the same time, you're not wasting everybody's time and you can move through business quickly and be done and go back to your life and do all those wonderful things. So parliamentary procedure was designed as a tool to help you navigate decision-making waters. Now, some people like to use it as a weapon, so it's also good to have that knowledge so you can defend against that sort of thing. If you can follow the proceedings, you can tell when something's being done incorrectly, if people are taking shortcuts, and you can make sure that the procedures are being done right. Does that mean you need to memorize the entire book of Robert's Rules of Order? No! You just need somebody like me around the corner to say, pss, pss, pss. That's how it goes. No, seriously, there are three main jobs that parliamentary procedure is designed to do, what your knowledge will help you do. Parliamentary procedure is supposed to be able to help you determine the will of a majority in a group while protecting the rights of a minority in the group and making corporate decisions in the most efficient way possible. Now, all that is to say, you get a group of people together, we all know the reputation that committees have for making decisions. Get a group of people together, the most efficient way to quickly get decisions made that reflect the majority of people is through using parliamentary procedure. We know that not everybody voted for the president this past election, though. And yet we are all bound by the decision made by the electorate, correct? Well, that's how meetings work too. We have a majority that wants their will to be established. There's also a minority whose rights need to be protected and respected. And then putting all that together, you make a corporate decision that everyone lives with. That's the same way in business meetings and caucuses. It's all it's designed to do. So I'm going to get you some fundamentals so that you're not really thinking about, do I know how to make that motion, or do I know how to navigate this particular process? You keep these things in mind. We'll get into motions later, but I want you stewing on these things, and then I'm done with this session. We'll move on to Paul. Think about these things. The organization is paramount. That means that the body's rights come before any individual particular members. That's not to say that individual members get crushed by that. Their rights are respected, but the body's time and resources are paramount. That just means if you join that organization, your job is to help get that mission done. Now, secondly, all members are equal. Nobody has any extra privileges anywhere in a meeting. Doesn't matter if it's the chair, doesn't matter if it's a parliamentarian, doesn't matter if it's the little lady in the back with the ear horn. Everybody has the same rights in an organization like that. Also, do one thing at a time. There's only one motion on the floor at a time. There's only one speaker on the floor at a time. Make sure that you're only doing one thing, because you can stop and do that one thing, you're making progress. If you're trying to handle 6 things, you're going to get bogged down. So do one thing at a time. Full discussion before a vote. Now, that means different things to different people, but let me tell you what it means and what it ought to mean to you going into conventions. You don't want to spend 14 hours on the floor debating resolutions at your convention. You do not. And I know there's ST chairs in here who are nodding at me going, heck no! The time for discussion on resolutions is in committee, where you have the opportunity to do that. That is called full discussion too. You don't have to debate every plank of every part of the resolutions on the floor. Go to committee, have your voice heard, and then what the committee product produces is what you're going to vote on. You can amend it from the floor, but don't pick them apart. But make sure that everybody has an opportunity, that doesn't mean everybody gets their say, but has an opportunity to get their say when you're dealing with motions, when you're dealing with proposals. If there's a debatable motion and there's reason for people to come to the microphones, do it, but respect everybody's time when you do. That gets to the next one. Don't waste time. Nobody likes spending, well, okay, if you're me, maybe a little bit, but nobody likes spending a bunch of time in meetings with people they see once every 2 years. Make sure that if you're making motions that you're clear, and make sure that the business is moving through, that nobody's trying to drag out a meeting on purpose. There are rules and ways to navigate around people who are wasting your time. We'll get into that later, but the purpose of parliamentary procedure is to get the business done so you can go back to your life. Also, the majority rules on regular decisions. That means if 50% plus one people are deciding an issue in your area, the same thing as national conventions, God help us, 50% plus one handles the business for most things in your convention. 2/3 majority rules on extraordinary questions. And those are questions of somebody's rights being limited, the ability to speak to an issue, the time you set, whether we're going to change the rules or suspend the rules so that somebody can come in and join and speak and then leave again. That's 2/3 because you want to make sure the body is on board with this huge change that affects so many people or limits a right or limits discussion. And the last one that you need to know, and this is a big one, silence is consent. If you don't vote, if you don't participate in the process, in the meetings, it's the same thing as if you didn't, as if you voted no or voted on the prevailing side. If you have an opinion, that's the time. Use that vote. Don't just sit there and passively watch things and expect anything to be any different. You have input. Use it. So when we get up here next, I'll talk more about the motions, what they are. There'll be a whole sheet in front of you to cheat sheet with. But I really want you to get the spirit and think of those principles, because that, more than any book knowledge, is going to help you navigate parliamentary procedure. All right? I'll be back.